You'd think the key to owning a home in the future for your kids would be money, but you're wrong. I mean, you're kind of right, but you're still wrong. So I've got 5 mindsets and lessons that we're going to be teaching our own kids that's more valuable than just handing over cash to them as they become adults and buying their first property. So did you know that in 2023, it was reported that between 35 and 47% of first-time homebuyers actually had a gifted down payment? In a world that's becoming increasingly unaffordable, there's many people who are envisioning a hard time for their kids actually purchasing a property, and let alone affording themselves. So in a recent StatsCan study that literally came out a couple days ago, it was all about affordability and kids and adult kids purchasing properties, especially those that were born in the 1990s. It said that people born in the 1990s whose parents were homeowners were twice as likely to own a home in 2021 than those whose parents were non-homeowners. And for those parents who owned more than one property, so 2, 3 or more, they were 3 times more likely to actually own a property in their future. So when I look at these stats of ownership, I think there's more than just money being passed down to these adult children who are now purchasing properties. So there's got to be some lessons in here, am I right? Let's be honest. It's not about the achievements, how much money you have, or even how much money you have for a down payment. It really is all about who you become through the process. So we're here, so let's go check this out. This is actually our first property that we purchased, and I'll get to that in a moment. But if you are in your late 30s, 40s, do you find yourself often saying 20 years ago or 25 years ago the XYZ happened? Well, nearly 20 years ago, this is the house that we actually purchased. The reality is we didn't get any handouts. We didn't get any help purchasing a property. In fact, the money we used for the down payment actually came from an error from our tax accountant, which we ended up having to pay later. So all of these things created a lot of problems for us and a lot of struggles, and the reality is it made us stronger. So this property here we actually purchased for about $238,000. Because we were self-employed, we had a 7.5% interest rate, so our mortgage payment was around $1,800 a month. And this property now, today in this market, is probably worth somewhere between $580,000 and $600,000. That's a big jump over 20 years, right? But that mortgage payment at today's interest rates, around 5.4%, is easily sitting around $3,300, $3,400 a month. But we also have to remember, we're in kind of a high cost environment right now. That interest rate's gonna come down. And if it comes down to in the mid 3s, that will put this property at $600,000, still at $2,800 a month. But once you own a property, you're in the market. Any equity growth, anything that happens, you can use it for future purchases. But getting a down payment from a parent is kind of a special gift. We didn't have that. But if you are planning on doing it, or even if you're not, your child needs to become the person that deserves a property instead of gets to own one because they got a down payment. So what are the lessons we've learned that we want to pass on to you that we're planning on teaching our kids? Well, come with me and let's go talk about it. Over the last 20 years, I've interviewed probably hundreds of applicants for various positions in our company. There are 3 things that I've always been looking for every time we have some of those final conversations. The first one is, are they hungry? The second is, are they actually able and capable of doing the position? And the last one, which I think is a huge life skill, is do they have the ability to figure it out? Now, what do I mean by this? When things get hard, you have to have the ability to look deep inside yourself, find the confidence to step into that hard task, and have the ability to figure it out. Now, not everyone has this skill. Allowing someone to create the confidence in themselves to have the ability to figure things out means they actually have to taste failure. And they can't always be saved. So our parents always allowed us to go through hard times, and that actually made us stronger. And it's something I think we'll do for our girls as well. And so the second lesson that we want to teach our girls is to basically never use credit cards like cash. I mean, this is something that is so easy for us to do in our day, right? Grab your wallet, pay for something, not even think about it, or even hit the buy button online. So simple. And it's even worse because your credit card numbers can actually be just saved in your computer. So it's really, really easy to do this. But I can honestly say, even when we started out and we didn't have much, to today, we still will never use a credit card if we don't have the cash in the bank. Living under credit debt, high interest loans, credit card debt, that would be quite taxing on someone's personality, their relationships, who they are. I mean, I remember watching people build their businesses in my life and getting the advice of saying, hey, you know what? Why don't you just use credit cards to fund your business or your life and then just move the balances around cards? You know, get 20 cards and just use 10 of them at a time and keep moving the money around. Oh my gosh, like that type of advice is not helpful, and it's not going to be something that's going to pass on generational wealth from one family to another and grow what you really want to grow. So if you don't have the cash, don't use the card. So the third lesson is actually 3 separate, basically thinking tools or frameworks for growth that are really, really valued and really important. And so the first one comes from Dan Sullivan, who was one of my past business coaches and is brilliant at taking complex thoughts and bringing them into simplistic ways of understanding it. And this is called the 4 C's. And so what the 4 C's are is essentially a way of trying to figure out if you want to grow. And the first thing that we always think about when we want to grow or do something new is we want to learn a new capability, right? And having that capability, that new skill, a lot of times is the first thing that we think we need to learn, because then we believe if we have that capability, then we are going to be able to have the confidence. And this is kind of what we're going after, right? If you have confidence, then you can get a skill, and we kind of intertwine these things. But where he actually breaks this down even further is there's 2 steps that are missing. The first one is commitment. You have to make a really large commitment first, and then there's actually a whole section and time frame that you have to be courageous. You have to have courage. And the longer that you are courageous, the harder the commitment is. So let me explain. When you make a commitment of something that you want to do, you have to know that you're going to have to be courageous for an amount of time. And then you're going to learn a skill through the courageous period. And once you learn that skill, you can then take the confidence to make a larger commitment. And this is basically a spiraling up way of growing. It could be something as so simple as, like, my girls are in dance. So for them to learn a dance move, a trick, something they want to do in a competition, they need to be really committed, and then they need to be courageous to learn it and fall and figure it out. And then they need to at some point go, hey, I think I got it. And now they have confidence to make a commitment for something even bigger. Now, the second mindset is something that we call Profit First. And it comes from a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So the whole idea is, for every dollar that comes into your account, you have to assign a certain percentage of that dollar to different things. And it's a really great way to basically label and understand exactly what every dollar is going towards. Because if you do not have a dollar or some money claimed to go somewhere, it can just get spent really, really easily and just disappear. So if you have a dollar coming in for your own life, take that dollar and say, I want X% to go to my own profit, something I want to keep. And then you might want to say, I want to take another percentage of it and put it into investments. And then thirdly, you might want to say, I'm going to put it into savings. And lastly, you might say, you know what, I got life, my mortgage, my bills, food, everything else. And you might take a large chunk of that, a percentage, and put it into life. And then what happens is, now you have these different buckets of money that you know are there for you. And every quarter, every 3 months, you can look at your profit and you can say, how do we spend that on us? Do we want to save it? Do we want to invest it? But you have choices to do it. But by doing it this way and labeling every single dollar that's coming in that goes towards something, it gives you clarity to help understand what to do next. And the third mindset that's super, super important is always be learning. The reality is in a world that is, oh my goodness, social media, things, scrolling this, marketing messages that are hitting us, sometimes we have to find a way to block that and focus on what it is that we want. And always be learning is a way that we like to think in our household is how do you continue to be curious? How do you kind of grow? How do you find things that you love? And I think what's really, really important is if you focus on learning and curiosity and leaving judgment on the side, that can turn into a really great life for you. Whoa, it's almost time. Okay, we gotta go. So it's not about the house. It's not about the down payment and the money, although that's very important. And if you have a kid that is fortunate enough to basically get a down payment for their property, I mean, we want to make sure that they have the character, the skills, and the personality to actually turn that opportunity into a greater opportunity. So if you're planning on giving your kid a down payment, that's okay, but let's work on the character of who they are as well. It all starts with who you are, how you live, the choices that you make, because they're watching you. Hey girls, how was your day at school? Good. Oh, that's fantastic. Did I ever tell you about that time about 20 years ago when I was, can I just share?